Hi again. This is another one on the 27th of March. And talking to my dear son and daughter-in-law, and they're recommending I choose a subject today. It's actually quite an exciting one. It's let's go back now to the Samoa. I think it was about 2004 in Samoa, and it was a cyclone that hit the island and the ship I was on. I think I mentioned my ship was called the Tokelau ship, and it was 30 meters long, and we had a crew of about 10 or 11, including the Fijians and Samoans and a couple of Tokelauans. Great boys, and they used to treat me like a king. And I had my own little air-conditioned cabin and on the bridge, and it was just a marvelous little ship. And I was in Apia, and we were alongside the wharf, and there was a hurricane or cyclone warning, and I spent most of the day, the preceding day, at the Met station, and talking to the chief Met officer there, a Samoa guy, and we were tracking the cyclone, and you could see it was coming down from the Tokelaus, and it was due to hit Samoa the next day in the afternoon. So I went and saw my boss, Zach, and Zach's quite a character actually. He's as gay as anything, but he was a quite efficient administrator. And it hadn't been for Zach, I wouldn't have got the job, because he actually plucked me from New Zealand and paid me about 4 times as much as probably he was getting, or anybody else was getting in Samoa, just to pay me what my normal salary would be. So Jack and I had some really good talks and had good times. Anyway, I told Zach, look, I want to get out of the port, because a port's not the best place to be in a cyclone, especially if it's open. And it was, Apia is actually open to winds from the north and northwest, and the swell comes in. So it's not really an all-weather port. So I said, look, I'm going, and I'm going to decide to shelter around the south side of the island. And so sure enough, the next morning, I got the crew together and told them what was happening, and there was a big cyclone. It's called Cyclone Heto, and what we were going to do. And I briefed my chief officer from Fiji, and I took the boat around, heading round clockwise, passing round the eastern side of the island. And on the eastern side, on the south side of the island, there's a line of cliffs very close to the beach. And these cliffs probably run for about 2 miles. And they're about maybe about 40 meters high. And obviously I thought I'll get some shelter from the wind there. So I'd made my plans, and we got the radar set up off the cliffs, which showed up very well on the radar, and I made a note of how many miles or meters from the cliffs we could go, and I set the range markers, and then I did a few runs along backwards and forwards, and the wind was starting to get up, and found out that I couldn't get less than I think it was 17 meters. If I got less than 17 meters, I was getting too close to the beach, because you couldn't see the beach, of course. You couldn't see the cliffs either, but you could pick them up on the radar, and you could see that there's a few houses along. There was a tourist place there too. You could certainly see that. But so we started, and the wind got up and got up and got up, and my grandfather writes about in his book the peculiar moan of a cyclone, a hurricane, and it's just a moaning sound as the wind gets up. And it got up to, it was blowing about 50 knots now, which is a storm force, 50 knots. And it was actually, well, the water was relatively calm. There was no big waves because we were sheltered from the wind, from the cliffs. The wind was coming right from the north, And we were going backwards and forwards, east and west, 2 miles, 2 miles, east and west. And it was looking good. And we were looking at the echo sounder, we were checking the radar, and we did 2 miles this way, 2 miles the next, and the wind got up and up and up and up. And sometime around about 2 o'clock in the morning, it was up to full hurricane force, 60 knots. And then a really torrential rain, which worried me a bit because the radar didn't work so well in torrential rain, but I still managed to see the cliffs. And then all of a sudden there was a huge big bang. God, what's that? And I went out the wing of the bridge and looked up, and all of the covering of the bridge deck, all the plywood covering had blown off, so it was all open. There was about 15 meters by about 25 meters just disappeared, and there was only just left was the steel framework. So well, we didn't do that anyway. So at least it's gone. It's not any more trouble. So we kept going, and I was getting more tired and more tired because I hadn't slept for a very long time, and I just stayed on the bridge, and my Fijian chief officer, he sort of took over for a while I sort of tried to prop myself off and nod off, but I couldn't really get any sleep. And then I got a call from the sat phone. Satellite phone went off. Oh God, who's trying to call me? And it was the search and rescue headquarters in Wellington in New Zealand. And the voice said, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it's a bit windy." And I said, "But your distress beacon has just got off. Your distress beacon." And I said, "What? I don't know about that." And of course, it didn't click. The distress beacon was attached to the bit that fell off. So it fell in the water and it got activated. And it was sending out distress signals. So I just shoot it. Don't worry about it. We're still here. We're in the middle of a cyclone, but it's going to be all right. So that was that was that. Anyway, the wind kept up, and it kept right up through till the following afternoon. I still hadn't got any sleep, and then it eased off enough for me to trust the both the second mate and the chief officer, and we did it for another night backwards and forwards, but this time the wind just dropped and dropped and dropped. And the next morning I phoned up Zach, my boss, and says, "Look, I'm heading back." And so we're heading back, and it wasn't too much wind, but there was a horrendous bloody swell. The swell must have been about at least 15 meters swell, and we managed to bash our way back and get into Samoa, and we tied up. And he comes running up to me and he hugs me and he says, "Oh, I was so worried about you. You've saved my ship. You've kept it going." I says, "Yeah, Zach, it was all right, but I never felt frightened. I'm just bloody sleepy." So anyway, that was that. So anyway, we went to the show that night, and he shouted me nice Cantonese roast duck and lots of beer, and that's another one of my little experiences. So that's the lot for there. Okay, bye bye.